Mr. Banks, no. Mrs. Blackburn, no. Mr. Tuberville, no. Mr. Blumenthal, aye. Mr. Kim, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Ms. Rosen, aye. Mr. Kane, aye. Ms. Murkowski, no. Mr. Lee, no. Ms. Hirono, aye. Mr. Lujan, aye. Mr. Curtis, no. Mr. Risch, no. Mr. Grassley, no. Ms. Klobuchar, aye. Mr. Young, no. Mr. Bozeman, no. Mr. Ricketts, no. Mr. Schmidt, no. Mr. Kelly, aye. Mr. Mullen, no. Mr. Cassidy, no. Mr. Kennedy, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 46, the nays are 52. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
Question is on the motion. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Madam President, I move to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
Question is on the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. Under the previous order, the clerk will report the motion. I'm sorry. To invoke.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the motion to proceed to Calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and so forth and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin. Okay, you guys can go. No.
I'm a no.
You're a no. Thank you. I did get you. Thank you. Thank you. I got you. Ms. Cantwell. Oh, no, I'm yes.
Okay, Scott.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso. Blumenthal. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Blunt-Rochester. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd. Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons. Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto. Thank you. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo.
Got it.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines. Ms. Duckworth. Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Lankford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, thank you, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Banks, Barrasso, Blackburn, Bozeman, Britt, Budd, Capito, Cassidy, Collins, Cornyn, Cortez Masto, Cotton, Kramer, Crapo, Cruz, Curtis, Daines, Ernst, Fisher, Graham, Grassley, Haggerty, Hawley, Husted, Hyde-Smith, Johnson, Justice, Kennedy, King, Lankford, Lee, Lummis, Marshall, McConnell, Moody, Marino, Mullen, Murkowski, Ricketts, Risch, Rounds, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Scott of South Carolina, Sheehy, Sullivan, Thune, Tillis, Tuberville, Wicker, and Young. Senators voting in the negative: Alser-Brooks, Baldwin, Bennett, Blumenthal, Blunt-Rochester, Cantwell, Durbin, Hassan, Kane, Kelly, Klobuchar, Merkley, Murray, Padilla, Paul, Peters, Reed, Rosen, Sanders, Schiff, Schumer, Slotkin, Smith, Van Hollen, Warner, Warren, Welch, Whitehouse, and Wyden. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. Markey. No. Mr. Fetterman, aye. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Kim, no. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. I didn't mean. That's all right. Mr. Warnock, no. Ms. Duckworth? No. Mr. Lujan? No. Mr. McCormick? Aye. Mr. Heinrich? No. Mr. Murphy? No. Mr. Booker? No. Mr. Schatz? No. Mrs. Shaheen? No.
On this vote, the yeas are 54 and the nays are 44. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader,
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate resume legislative session being a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
without objection.
Okay.
The Democratic Leader.
I move to proceed to calendar number 167 S2882.
The clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar number 167 S2882, a bill making appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2026, and for other purposes.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the motion to proceed to calendar 167 S2882, a bill making continuing appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2026, and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I withdraw my motion to proceed.
The senator has that right. The motion is withdrawn.
Yield the floor.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
Clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
President, I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will.
And 26 and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent to read and the names be waived.
Without objection.
And I move to proceed to executive session to consider the in-block nominations listed in SRS 412.
The question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nominations on block.
Nominations, calendar number 62, Paul Atkins of Virginia to be a member of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the names be considered read.
Without objection.
And I send a cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate and the provisions of SRES 412 from the 119th Congress, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on executive calendar numbers 62, 86, 92, 126, 127, 128, 143, 155, 158.
Mr. President, I ask consent that the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
Signed by 17 senators as follows.
And I ask consent that the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate resume legislative session.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of the following bills in block: calendar number 77 S180, calendar number 79 S419, calendar number 80 S539, calendar 82 S1316, and calendar 83 S1563. Further, that the committee reported substitute amended to Senate Bill 1563 be agreed to, and the committee reported amendment for S1316 be agreed to, that the committee reported substitute amendment for S539 be withdrawn, and the Corden substitute amendment at the desk to S539 be agreed to. Finally, that the bills as amended, if amended, be considered read a third time, passed in block, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made, laid upon the table, all in block. Mr. President, I rise to request unanimous consent here on the bills that were just mentioned to call up and pass this year's Police Week bills. These are bipartisan bills. These are common sense. And most importantly, particularly in light of recent events, and you can turn on the television right now and see what I'm talking about, they would give this chamber the chance to demonstrate its commitment to the men and women who wear the badge and to the laws they serve to protect. This is not a time to mince words or blur lines. This is a time to speak clearly with full moral force. In cities across the country, our law enforcement officers are beset from below and above. From below on our streets, they face an emboldened criminal element and a resurgence of organized political violence. From above, in the halls of power, they face a political class which seems hell-bent on undermining and attacking them at every turn. We have watched this unfold for years now. The press has smeared and defamed our police officers, seeking to incite hatred and violence against them. Fringe academic ideas about defunding police and shuttering prisons have moved from the classroom to the courtroom to the legislature, and then could be seen in unprecedented waves of violence that ravaged our cities in the wake of the George Floyd riots in 2020. It can still be seen today on the streets of cities overtaken by Antifa. These are not rhetorical or theoretical concerns. We watched it happen in real time. It is not the product of social conditions or inequity or systematic this or that. It is the inevitable result of a civilization that's lost its moral nerve. A civilization that is too racked by guilt to punish its criminals, to enforce its laws, or to confront its enemies, even when those enemies are beating police officers and firebombing federal buildings right before our eyes. When a government loses the ability or the will to defend its own cities, its own institutions, its own people, then it ceases to be a government worthy of its name. The path back to justice is simple. It requires laws like the ones we are going to consider here today. It requires protecting the people who protect us, like the bill to equip first responders with protective gear against fentanyl exposure, keeping them safe from the very poisons they're trying to fight. It requires ensuring that our police officers are healthy in body and in spirit, like the bill to reauthorize critical mental health services for cops and their families. Every single year, more police officers die by suicide than die in the line of duty. This is profoundly a policy failure and one that is on us to fix. It requires hunting down the predators who seek to prey upon our kids from the darkest recesses of the internet, like the bill to reauthorize and modernize the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This bill funds and enhances our ability to catch and convict the very worst kinds of criminals, those who target and abuse children. It requires building strong police departments with officers who know the neighborhoods and the people that they protect, like our bill to send local recruits to police academies if they agree to serve in the precincts in their own communities. And it requires wisdom and experience, like the bill to give state and local agencies the ability to rehire retired officers in civilian law enforcement roles. If you stand on the side of justice and our first responders, these votes should be simple and easy. That, Mr. President, I'd ask we move forward.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request?
I'm going to reserve the right to object.
Senator from New Jersey.
I'm really grateful that this is one of the areas where we have a lot of bipartisan support, because this body, I would say unanimously, believes that we have to do more to help local law enforcement. I see it in my state. We have real challenges with recruitment, challenges with officers who are in incredibly stressful situations for their mental health, and even empowering officers to be able to do their job, which is a job that everyone wants our officers to do. I say this all the time. If you polled my city, which is majority minority city, majority African-American city, and asked them, hey, do you want more police, less police, or the same amount of police? Undeniably, they would want more law enforcement. And when I talk to the law enforcement officers in not just my city, but up and down the state, they want more resources. It's why I have multiple bills to actually fund our police departments around our country, specifically in New Jersey, to empower them on everything from closing out murder investigations all the way to mental health. In fact, the legislation that's being brought forward, it's right, it's a bipartisan legislation. I am the co-sponsor of some of the bills that we have right now on the floor. We should be united in this body, all 100 of us, to stand up for public safety and to fund our police, get them the resources and the equipment that they need to do their job. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. President Trump, through an arbitrary executive order, has told this body that your intentions will not be followed. The legislation that is being proposed today, the president has already said, those DOJ grants will not go to certain states: Illinois, California, New York, New Jersey, that they are not eligible for these grant programs. That's not a bipartisan way of going about it. That's singling out certain states over other states. That's actually defunding the police departments in certain states for other states when you say these states that have gotten many of these grants in years past can no longer get them. None of us in this body should support that. All of us in this body should join together and say, when Congress passes a grant program, the President of the United States cannot arbitrarily decide which states receive those grants and which states don't. I feel a driving sense of urgency that we must support our police officers. They are facing greater and newer challenges in this country. I feel a deep urgency to support mental health issues in particular, because I lost one of my dear childhood friends who died by suicide in uniform. I want to make a simple adjustment to this legislation. Very simple. And what it would do is basically say that when this body has approved these grant programs, the president can't undermine the founder's intention that we hold the purse strings, that the president can't undermine that, and these grants have to go out as Congress intended them. That's all I'm asking from my colleague across the aisle. It's all I'm asking from this body, is that we together say we need to get resources for police officers in all of our country. We shouldn't be picking out some departments and not others. This is just simply making sure that this is a bipartisan effort to fund local police officers. And so I ask my colleagues to pass these bills as I amend them, so that we can refocus on the urgent work of reopening the government and then providing all law enforcement agencies with the resources they need, ensuring every law enforcement agency has a fair opportunity to secure funding to support their work, to support the men and women, to support their sacred and noble duties. We should work in a bipartisan way. And so I ask that the consent be modified such that my amendments to S-180, S-419, S-539, S-1316, and S-1563, which are at the desk, also be agreed to with all the other provisions that my colleague is asking for remain intact so that we can fund all of police and stop our president's attempt to defund police departments in blue states.
Is there objection to the modification?
Mr. President,
Senator from Missouri.
reserving the right to object. Mr. President, let's be clear about what this provision does for my friend from New Jersey. It's an attempt to throw a lifeline to these sanctuary cities that are openly defying the law. In order to receive federal grant dollars, you can't withhold information from federal law enforcement. That's what they're doing. That's what it means to be a sanctuary city. What you're saying is we're not going to work with ICE or any other federal agency because we want to protect illegal immigrants in our cities. That's what's happening. That's deeply unpopular with the American people. And that's why the president has taken his action to try to get these cities to come along and be part of the program with the rest of the country to say, we're all going to work together to keep our communities safe. This provision is a direct attempt to undermine the Trump administration to do that and their renewed enforcement of our immigration laws. I know some people got used to the last 4 years where 20 million people came here illegally and federal law enforcement was handcuffed by the Biden administration to actually enforce our immigration laws. So much so that the rhetoric that had been exhibited for that time now is carried over. And you see fire bombings, you see attacks on ICE officials, attempts to dox them, to destroy their families and their reputations, their finances, because they've been led to believe by many with the loudest microphones that somehow everyone's entitled to be here for as long as they want, that our laws don't matter, that borders are arbitrary lines on a map and we're all global citizens. And the white papers from the 60s and the 70s found their way into the halls of the highest offices in government. In the Biden administration, these Ivy League grads who wrote these white papers or read these white papers or indoctrinated by these white papers were suddenly in charge. Well, there's a new sheriff in town who actually believes in law and order. And so I would hope that city leaders who defy our federal laws shouldn't be entitled to federal tax dollars. Federal grant dollars are not entitlements. They're not unconditional welfare for the far left activists. If you want federal funds, you have to comply with federal law. Sanctuary cities are in open defiance of federal law. They actively prohibit their officials from cooperating with federal immigration officers. They release violent offenders, suppress gang databases, and do everything in their power to prevent the men and women of law enforcement from enforcing our laws. That's what they're doing in sanctuary cities right now. Every one of the Police Week bills that I've offered for unanimous consent, and my friend from New Jersey is indeed a co-sponsor of, are very, very bipartisan. I can't actually believe we're in a place that we're going to be holding up that kind of bipartisan legislation when you see the violence against law enforcement officers in our country every single day. This is a lifeline to them, the help that they need, not just to do their jobs, but to be able to seek the services so they can be healthy physically and mentally. So let's be clear about what's happening. And my friend has, a few moments here to reconsider this. These are common sense. And if anything from last November we could take away, is that the American people voted for a return to common sense. And with that, Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Is there objection to the original request? Senator from New Jersey.
yeah, I have so much respect for my colleague. I want to respond to some of the things he said because, again, I just want to affirm that he is right on the urgency to help our police officers. He is right that states should abide by federal law that passes from this body. But what we have now is a president in his first term that didn't ever try something like this, which is undermining the will of Congress. This is really unprecedented. That has never happened. Republican president, Democratic president, including Donald Trump's first term, where he suddenly said, I'm going to turn off the spigot of support to local law enforcement agencies because I don't agree with your policies. I think that's a threat to the independence of our branch of government. I think that that is in so many ways violative of our shared values on both sides of the aisle. But let me go further than that. What the president is doing is saying, not only am I going to stop funding from going to the state of New Jersey, I'm going to go to red counties in New Jersey, red counties in California. I actually went out and talked to people, Republican legislatures in states, Republican police officers, Republican union leader told me this as well, and says, this is ridiculous. So this is insane. That we would hold grants back from the entire state. He goes, I don't agree with Democrats' policies, but we're out here putting our lives on the line, and Republicans in Congress want to stop resources coming to our police departments? One of the union leaders said to me that my guys are out there sacrificing their lives, and we can't get help that both sides of the aisle agree on? And so, yeah, my colleague and I disagree on domestic immigration policies. But one thing I don't agree on, because I was a mayor of a city that basically said, in order to keep my city safe, we're going to cooperate with the police department, because it was an overbroad generalization that was made on the Senate floor that we're not supporting ICE and immigration activities, because I know this up and down the state of New Jersey. Not only do we support them, but we detail officers with federal immigration enforcement. I did it when I was mayor. You want to talk about cooperation, anybody who knows local government, from the FBI to the ATF to ICE, all over New Jersey, we are cooperating with federal authorities. What we have simply said, if we're responsible for local law enforcement, we're not going to do things that create such fear in our communities that immigrant communities are afraid to come to local police to report crimes. And that somehow, not in the first term, Trump's first term, but somehow in this term of office, that's a bridge too far. Well, let me tell you right now, the way that immigration is being pursued in our neighborhoods, where masked agents are coming out of unmarked cars, are going to court appearances and schools and hospitals, my local police officers are telling me how much more dangerous this administration is making communities, because people who are victims of crime now are afraid to go to local police officers and report those crimes. And again, this is not coming from politicians in New Jersey. This is coming from law enforcement officers that have said that we've created such a climate of fear in our country that just solving crimes is getting harder and harder because people are afraid to come to the police. So yes, we have policies that say there are certain things we won't do to maintain a community of trust within our communities. So I understand there is a lot of rhetoric. I can turn on shock news and all of that, but when you talk to the law enforcement officers in many of the most Republican parts of my community, they're outraged about what's happening right now. So again, we can debate policy on immigration, but to me, for a senator to allow a president to undermine the power of the purse relegated by the Constitution to this body is outrageous. It's never been done before. Not in Trump's first term, not by Bush, not by Reagan, not by Clinton, not by Obama. We are in new territory here in our country where we see a president encroaching upon our powers, and I can't be complicit in that. Everybody in this body, I would never question any of my colleagues on either side of the aisle. We all want our local police departments to not only be able to do their job, we all actually want to have more equipment and more resources. That's why these bills are bipartisan. But how could we allow bipartisan bills passed out of the Senate to then be stopped in a partisan way by a president who is then going to choose red states and hurt blue states, even though my state has millions of Republicans who deserve to have their communities safe as well. I'm standing today just to say, let's use common sense and help our police officers together get this resource is desperately needed out to our communities now, and not let this fall victim to something that wasn't even an issue in Donald Trump's first term. And so I object. I object.
Objection is heard.
Well, the shutdown melodrama continues. I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. It smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just further proof that human evolution is a slow process. This shutdown, what you're witnessing now, is just further proof of why it took human beings thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown is bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. Some shutdowns are based on policy. Some shutdowns are based on politics. Some shutdowns are based on a combination of both. This one is pure. It's pure as ivory snow. This shutdown is based on politics. Let me tell you what's going on. I believe in a two-party system, Mr. President. Why? Because two parties create competition. And competition makes all of us better. It does. The Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is competing within itself right now. And there is a distinct wing of the Democratic Party that is winning that competition. If I wanted to use a pejorative expression, I would call it the loon wing of the party. The loon wing of the Democratic Party. Or you might call it the Bolshevik wing of the Democratic Party. I think a more accurate description is to call it the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. I think that's fair. Now, I'm not saying that all of my Democratic friends are socialists, but there is clearly a wing of the Democratic Party that can only be described accurately as the socialist wing of the party. And that party is in ascendancy. That party is in control. Now, my friend Senator Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. And he, of course, has instructed his colleagues to vote to shut down government. And Senator Schumer has been criticized for that. And I understand. I don't agree with him. I think he made a mistake. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the leader of this effort. I don't. I think Senator Schumer, like many of his colleagues, would like to be loved by everybody in the party, and he would like to be loved by the socialist wing of his party. And I do think that's part of what is motivating this shutdown, and that's why I say it's all about politics. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate an end of this shutdown, come see me. Come see me. And I think any fair-minded person has to look right now and say that the two leading members, the quarterback, the two leading members of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, the quarterback is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her substitute is Senator Bernie Sanders. But I think it's the Congresswoman who's calling these shots. Now, Mr. President, I don't hate anybody. I've said that repeatedly, and I mean it. I like all of my colleagues. I look for grace wherever I can find it. When I say my prayers, I do every single time. I ask God, don't let me hate, because it's hard sometimes. It's hard up here. But I do. I say, God, don't let me hate. And I certainly don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I want to make that very clear. She has the right to her opinion. She has the right to try to have the socialists take over the Democratic Party. That's the American way. Ironically, I think what she's doing is anti-American, but she has the right as an American to do it, so I don't hate her. But I judge her by her policy. She has her opinion and I have mine. And I have to judge her candidly by her policy. Here is what the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, has said to the American people and to the United States Congress and the Republicans in Congress. If you Republicans don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion, not $1 million, not $1 billion, $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut government down. Well, of course we said no. I'm not going to vote for that. My mother didn't raise a fool. And as I've said before, if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm never going to vote for that. Now, where do I come up with this figure, $1.5 trillion? Well, the first thing that the socialists and Congresswoman
and Democrats are adamant that we must protect the health care of the American people. And so now, rather than working with us to end the pain Americans are feeling because of a shutdown, Republicans have instead, they've wasted a week, refused to talk, and exacerbated pain for America. Instead of trying to come to the table and negotiate with Democrats and reopen the government, the White House and fellow Republicans have vowed to make this a maximum pain shutdown, they call it. Unfortunately, the maximum pain falls on the American people, and the American people know it. They know it's not Democrats doing this maximum pain. It's vote and Trump and the Republicans. And so it falls on them. And so even in the White House and in the administration, there are people saying, don't do it, because the blame correctly will fall on Trump's shoulders. They're using the American people as political pawns. Why? Because they don't want to even talk to us about reopening the government by fixing health care. New data came out today from KFF, and that is not Kentucky Fried French fries. KFF could be Kentucky French fries. Nah. I know, Orange. Excuse me. Today, new data came out from KFF, the Kaiser Family Foundation, that said that 78% of Americans say Congress should extend the ACA tax credits. 60% of people who voted for Trump said extend the tax credits. And so the Trump administration is feeling it. They know there's trouble. And let me read you a headline from this morning's Wall Street Journal that I thought was very apt and very well written. Raise your hand if any of you wrote it. You get kudos. It says, White House senses political risk on health care despite shutdown bravado. They know that the American people are for it. They know that 60% of MAGA supporters are for it. And why? Well, because if these credits are not extended, listen to this, the average couple who's 55, the average 55-year-old couple making $85,000 a year would see their premiums not just double, but go up $25,000. You're a couple at 55, you're about to think of your retirement. How the hell are you going to find $25,000 a year for your health care? Do you know what anguish that causes people? It's not just something that goes away. People sit there and agonize. How are they going to get health care, which they need so much? What are they going to cut? Republicans hold the House, the Senate, and the White House. They're in charge. American people know that. And the American people know that it's only smart and fair and right that they should negotiate with us if they want our votes, not do a partisan bill. They wrote it all with no Democratic input and say, just vote for it, take it or leave it. According to NBC today, Americans are more inclined to blame Trump and Republicans for a shutdown, according to 4 independent polls. Any of you NBC people wrote that headline? It's a good one. Republicans know it. They know the damage they're causing, and Americans are noticing. And what's their response? A vow to cause maximum damage. That maximum damage is to American families, and American families know it. What's their response? When they didn't get the votes today or 3 times before? We'll see. Maybe they'll have a change of course. That would be a very good thing if they came and sat down and negotiated with us. And their second response is to just lie. They're so afraid of the truth that they make up lies. Here's PolitiFact when they say, oh, the Democrats want to give the money to undocumented immigrants. Here's PolitiFact. J.D. Vance said, Democrats are threatening to shut down the entire government because they want to give hundreds of billions of dollars to healthcare to benefit illegal aliens. What does PolitiFact say? False. And I hope you'll all write that over and over again, because if they're going to tell the lie over and over and over again, it's the responsibility of all of us to say it's a lie over and over and over again. Undocumented people cannot and will not receive a premium tax credit by federal law. The federal government does not fund health insurance for undocumented immigrants in Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security by law. Republicans know it. They lie about it. When I was with the White House with Johnson, he said it. I was sitting there. I said, that's bull. And he didn't say it isn't. He just smirked. That's what they do. And when you lie about it, it shows fundamental weakness, because you know where the American people are. When they're confronted with the truth, they cover it up with a lie. But unfortunately for them, the truth doesn't lie. And as I mentioned, when this chart shows what a high percentage of Americans want us to extend the ACA subsidies for health insurance, 71 to 29. And it shows you that's why it's so high, because even 60% of Trump voters want to extend it. So Americans want lower costs. Americans want to extend the tax cuts. Many of my Republican colleagues want that too. So it's simple. They can reopen the government and make people's health care more affordable at the same time. And the only people making it a choice between one and the other, between health care and opening up the government, to the Republicans. We're not. We say we can do both. Senator Klobuchar.
So what's at stake here? The Republicans have created a healthcare crisis. It was already a difficult situation, but by passing the big, beautiful betrayal of a bill, they basically are kicking 15 million people off of their healthcare, off of Medicaid. They are going to close down rural hospitals. Some of that already has happened, in part because of the $500 billion Medicare cut that was triggered because of their decision to increase the debt so much with tax cuts to the wealthy. Those are things that have happened. But the final thing is that when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, where you have 20 million people that are on these plans in each of their individual states, in my state it's called MNsure, they will not be able to afford their insurance. I heard this big time when I was out in rural Minnesota. I went to 13 counties last week. Time and time again, the farmers, over a quarter of them are on these plans, even higher in my state. And they told me, we can't afford it. It's going to double our premiums. One guy said it's like a perfect storm of ugly between the Republican tariffs and the healthcare costs and what's happening with their input costs like fertilizer because of the tariffs that have been put on those. That's what's happening right now. And what does the president do? $20 billion to Argentina, while our soybean farmers have literally had their entire market dry up. So what else has he done in response to our serious request to have negotiations? He posts a deep fake video with sombreros in it, and he thinks that's funny. This isn't funny to the American people who are starting to get their premium bills right now. Then today it's the Grim Reaper with himself in a video that is just, again, completely, he thinks this is funny. He thinks that people are going to joke about this. I promise you, they're not. They are seeing their premiums double right now. So why is this something we're standing up for now? Because it's happening now. Ask anyone you know. It is not a December thing. It is not a January thing. It is a now thing. And we are asking them to meet with us to do something to help fix this healthcare crisis. And it's something they can do. It's something I am sure many of you have heard them behind closed doors say they actually want to do, because they've realized so many of their rural constituents. And when you look at the number, you realize so many Republican constituents know that this is a plans that are relied on by small businesses, by individual farmers, by people that don't work at big corporations, so they can't afford their own health care. That's what happens. And I just cannot believe that they've decided instead to repost offensive deepfake videos than actually get to work, open the government, and do something about healthcare.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Senator Schatz.
Somebody sent me the notification that the House is not planning on coming back next week. And I think there is not a clear illustration of their lack of seriousness in terms of reopening the government and solving the healthcare crisis. And there are a lot of people asking us, why now? And the answer is the crisis is now. People are getting their letters now. The price spikes 114% for 24 million Americans. They're happening now. And so in the four corners of the Capitol, this is being treated as a kind of political question and a procedural question and a kind of public relations question. but for tens of millions of Americans, people on the exchanges, but also everybody else. Because we know how health insurance works. When people lose their health insurance, everybody else who retains their health insurance sees a spike in their rates as well. Tens of millions of Americans are actually getting hurt. And this is not an abstraction or something that we're going to argue about that may or may not happen 18 months from now, or 24 months from now, or 3 or 4 years from now. They're getting the letters now. And some of those letters say, we're not sure how much your increase is going to be, but we'll let you know later. And some of those are pretty explicit. You were paying $289, now you're paying $485. And so this is serious business. And if you look at Leader Schumer and Senator Klobuchar and a lot of our leadership, we are perfectly willing and capable to do bipartisan compromises when it's in the interest of the public. But we need a dance partner. We are sitting here saying we are willing to solve this problem with you because this is hurting your constituents too. But you have to sit down and work with us to solve this urgent healthcare crisis.
Senator, thank you, Senator Schatz. Yes.
I asked Mr. Johnson this morning what he's willing to do to make sure premiums don't spike for Americans. And he said, quote, we are committed and we'll do whatever it is necessary to make it happen. So my question to you is, short of your bill, what commitments do you need to see?
Look, I'm not going to negotiate in public. As I said, we need to protect Americans from these rising insurance rates. And we need to sit down and negotiate it. He won't even do that. So how can he say he wants to help Americans if he won't sit down? He knows he needs both sides to get it done, plain and simple. In the White House the other day, he said he didn't want to do any ACA. And he said that before in the past as well. But the American people are going to make it clear to him and certainly his members that they want it done. And I believe that they will be pushed very hard by American citizens who don't want to see their rates go up so much.
There are some informal talks going on between senators. Senator, how dialed into these talks are you? Do you think they're making progress?
Yeah, look, first my Democratic senators who were involved came to me, a bunch of them, and said, should they do it? I said, by all means. We want Democrats to talk with Republicans. And so it's a good thing. Unfortunately, last night, if you ask our Democratic senators, the Republicans didn't offer anything really new, just the same old stuff. And so nothing new on ACA, nothing on rescissions. And so, look, our Democrats want to go back and negotiate again, but they got to negotiate with something, get something in return. Yes.
Whatever bill that you support public in the government, does that have to include language specifically addressing the ACA crisis? And secondly, you mentioned that President Trump at the White House meeting was open perhaps to extend these subsidies. At least he was sympathetic. He said he heard about it for the first time. Have you tried to reach out to him again to kind of keep that conversation going?
Well, look, the bottom line on that is we need the president to be involved. Johnson and a whole lot of his caucus don't like the ACA, don't want to do the extensions. A lot of Republican senators in the Senate do, but they're not enough. Thune is not enough. You need Johnson and you particularly need Trump to get it done. So that's the bottom line. And we need real improvements in Americans' healthcare, plain and simple. Calling someone in the back. Way in the back. Yep, go ahead.
Leader Schumer, it was reported that there was a 34% increase in demand at military food bank in Fort Worth, Texas this week. How do you square the needs of constituents facing immediate pain during a shutdown with your focus on lowering healthcare premiums?
The bottom line is there's a simple way to end the shutdown. Come and sit down and negotiate a fair bill with us. Yes.
The president, as you say, has been tweeting out memes. Democrats have said that he doesn't understand the healthcare crisis. What makes you think, what evidence do you have that he will eventually be bowed to public pressure?
The evidence we have is right here. 60% or 58, I think it is actually, of Trump voters want it extended. And it's going to, the pressure on the president to do the right thing here will get greater in the month, as both Amy and Brian mentioned, as people get their new health care bills and they see how much it is. It's shocking how much it is. And they go and say, who did it? And we Democrats are going to be there day in and day out and say, the president and the Republicans did it. And that's why we feel we're, that's why we feel we're in a strong position. Thank you, everybody.